In the vast expanse of our solar system, interstellar visitors occasionally streak through, drawing the gaze of astronomers and sometimes more shadowy observers. But one such object, designated 3I Atlas, has prompted an unusual response from an unexpected quarter. The Central Intelligence Agency, when queried under the Freedom of Information Act about any records on this comet, issued what's known as a Glomar response, neither confirming nor denying the existence of such documents. This type of reply is rare in the context of celestial objects. Freedom of Information Act researcher John Greenwald, through his organization The Black Vault, notes that in decades of requests about comets, this exact phrasing has appeared only once before. In that prior instance, the information was eventually partially declassified after 2 years, labeled as sensitive for national security reasons. When NASA speaks of 3I Atlas in plain terms as a comet behaving like any other, why would the CIA opt for such opacity? It invites us to examine the intersection of astronomy and national defense without jumping to conclusions. Let's turn to the source material provided by astrophotographer Ray, who has been tracking developments around 3I Atlas. In his latest update, Ray doesn't present his own telescopic images or data processing workflows. Instead, he focuses on secondary documentary evidence gathered through John Greenwald. Ray describes how Greenwald's team at the Black Vault submitted a formal FOIA request to the CIA, seeking any information on the comet's whereabouts and characteristics. According to Ray, this request was met with the agency's standard formal letter.
Let's talk about the new information that we are hearing. They're talking about CIA, our Central Intelligence Agency, getting involved and interested in Comet 3I Atlas. So how is it possible and why CIA is involved in understanding how and where Comet 3I Atlas is and all the whereabouts? So we wanted to go back and understand why CIA is interested in any comets in general, right?
Ray explains this Glomar tactic as a legal maneuver that shields the agency from disclosing strengths, weaknesses, or even the presence of monitoring assets. What Ray observes here is not first-hand astronomical data, but the bureaucratic language itself, the refusal to engage on the record. He doesn't speculate on hidden meanings, but points out the response's neutrality. The assumptions in Ray's account include the idea that this stems from standard protective protocols, though he leaves open why it was chosen over a simple denial or release. Unknowns abound. The exact criteria for invoking Glomar in astronomical context remain undisclosed. This exchange didn't occur in a vacuum. 3I Atlas is an interstellar comet originating from beyond our solar system, following a hyperbolic path that ensures it won't return. Discovered amid routine sky surveys, it quickly garnered public interest due to its exotic origin and visible tail as it approached the sun. Ray contextualizes the timing by noting that defense agencies like the CIA have monitored such objects since the Cold War era. The primary concern? Avoiding confusion between natural bodies and man-made threats, such as incoming missiles or nuclear re-entry vehicles. Ray mentions how meteors, asteroids, and comets could be misperceived in radar or optical tracking systems, especially during periods of geopolitical tension. Public speculation has surged around 3I Atlas, fueled by media reports of potential anomalies, slight deviations in speed or trajectory that some attribute to non-gravitational forces. Ray observes that whenever public panic or apocalyptic narratives emerge in the news, agencies step in to assess. The FOIA request aligns with peak visibility of the comet, when online discussions amplified questions about its composition and behavior. Why does this timing matter? It heightens the stakes for misinterpretation. If an object's path veers unexpectedly, even naturally, it could trigger false alarms in defense networks. Ray assumes that tracking extends to anomalies and exotic objects, but he doesn't detail how. That's left uncertain, as agencies rarely reveal their methods. The mainstream explanation for agency involvement in cometary tracking is rooted in national security imperatives. Organizations like the CIA and U.S. Space Force maintain vigilance over near-Earth and interstellar objects to differentiate benign cosmic wanderers from potential hazards or adversarial technologies. Orbital catalogs, such as those from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, provide predicted positions, ephemerides, updated daily based on gravitational models. Ray points out that defense entities download these catalogs at regular intervals, comparing them against real-time observations to detect deviations. Such deviations might stem from natural causes, like outgassing of volatiles as the comet heats up, altering its momentum. But they could also signal fragmentation or, in extreme hypotheticals, something artificial. Chemical spectra analysis plays a role too. Identifying signatures of cyanide, oxygen, nickel, iron, or other elements helps classify the object. NASA routinely publishes these findings for scientific transparency, aiding hazard assessments for potential Earth impacts. Defense agencies, however, may classify subsets of data if they expose sensor resolutions, data fusion techniques, or intelligence sources. Ray observes that while NASA focuses on composition and spectra, defense interests lean toward location and velocity, critical for threat evaluation. He assumes these orbits are cataloged and monitored for changes, but unknowns include the specific thresholds for alerting or classifying. This framework makes sense for routine monitoring, and we can accept it as a baseline. Agencies have a mandate to protect against misidentifications, especially with interstellar objects that behave unpredictably due to their high speeds. Yet pivoting from there, the Glomar response itself eludes easy explanation under this lens. If 3I Atlas is merely a standard comet, why not release non-sensitive ephemerides or affirm that no extraordinary records exist? Standard practice for benign objects involves declassification or outright denial. Ray highlights the deliberate ambiguity in the CIA's letter, which neither confirms monitoring nor rules it out. This suggests the possibility of a dataset deemed unusually sensitive, perhaps raw telemetry that could reveal collection methods, or an internal evaluation that views even acknowledgement as a risk. What remains unexplained is the threshold, why this comet, when others receive straightforward responses. Assumptions here include protective intent, but the pivot underscores a gap. Public data from NASA contrasts with this wall of reticence, leaving us to question if something in 3I Atlas's profile triggered heightened caution. Delving deeper, several contradictions emerge in the available information. First, NASA's public stance is unequivocal. As Ray quotes them, "It looks like a comet, walks like a comet, so it's a comet." They release research papers, spectra, and orbital solutions openly, fostering scientific collaboration. In stark contrast, the CIA refuses to acknowledge any records whatsoever, creating a dissonance between civilian and defense narratives. Ray observes this split without resolving it, noting the confusion it sows among the public seeking clarity. A second contradiction lies in historical precedent.
Take a look at it and see what it is. They do not mention about anything about how and where and what would be their assets that they would be deploying to capture the data on these comets. They are not going to reveal that.
Ray, drawing from Greenwald, points out that in all prior comet-related FOIA requests, only one elicited a Glomar reply. 2 years on, partial declassification revealed the withheld data as sensitive, implying the initial denial wasn't mere procedure but a shield for substantive concerns. This rarity for 3I Atlas stands out. Why invoke it now if the object is unremarkable? Third, public orbital catalogs are refreshed daily and accessible to all, embodying open data policies for astronomical bodies. Yet, as Ray describes, defense organizations conduct internal comparisons of these catalogs, downloading updates to scan for discrepancies without public disclosure. This internal opacity contradicts the transparency applied to other interstellar visitors like Oumuamua or Borisov, where deviations were debated openly. Ray assumes these checks are for anomalies, but the lack of shared findings leaves a void. If deviations exist, why not confirm or debunk them publicly to quell speculation? These points highlight tensions without forcing interpretations. We must separate what Ray directly observes, the FOIA documents and historical comparisons, from assumptions about agency motives and acknowledge unknowns like the full scope of internal analyses. Considering plausible natural explanations for the Glomar response, one centers on safeguarding sensor networks. Defense systems employ radars, optical telescopes, and space-based assets to track objects, fusing data to distinguish comets from missile re-entries. Releasing records could expose resolutions or algorithms, compromising future detections. Ray notes that agencies avoid revealing assets, which aligns with this theory, natural procedural caution rather than object-specific intrigue. Another working theory involves evaluating non-gravitational forces. These can arise from outgassing, where solar heating releases gases, nudging the comet off its predicted path. NASA studies this for scientific insight, but defense entities might scrutinize it to rule out masked maneuvers, like low-thrust propulsion in hypothetical artificial probes. Ray observes that such forces aren't automatically technological, they could be chemical reactions altering trajectory. This evaluation might warrant temporary classification until natural causes are confirmed, explaining the reticence. A third theory ties to public panic management. If initial orbital solutions showed residuals, small but statistically notable mismatches, premature release could ignite unfounded speculation. Ray mentions how media-driven apocalypse scenarios prompt agency reviews. By neither confirming nor denying, the CIA avoids fueling narratives before verification, a natural response to heightened attention around 3I Atlas. These theories remain working hypotheses grounded in observed practices but not conclusive. They accept routine monitoring while pivoting to why this case differs. Significant data gaps persist, underscoring the limits of our understanding. Foremost is the exact content of any CIA-held records on 3I Atlas if they exist. Ray's account via Greenwald reveals only the denial, not what might be concealed, perhaps enhanced spectra or telemetry beyond public releases. We also lack clarity on orbital deviations. Are there any beyond NASA's published JPL Horizon solutions? Ray emphasizes the importance of tracking these.
John Greenwald said the black holes, that organization that he represents, where he stored all these archival of data from the government, and that organization is mainly interested in getting data based on the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA.
According to Ray, while amateurs and NASA monitor, defense programs systematically compare predictions against reality. The presence, magnitude, and significance of any mismatches remain unknown, as do the thresholds for deeming them anomalous. Specific assets used for non-public data collection are another blind spot. Ground-based radars, space-based sensors, or allied partnerships might be involved, but Ray observes that such details are never disclosed, preserving operational security. Comparisons between defense-grade chemical spectra and NASA's public versions are absent. Does higher resolution analysis reveal unreported elements or ratios? Ray notes NASA's focus on signatures like cyanide or metals, but defense interests might extend to hazard potentials, leaving us without direct contrasts. Finally, the timeline of the Glomar decision relative to the comet's discovery and public peak is unclear. Was it prompted by initial observations, media buzz, or later data? This chronology could illuminate intent, yet it stays shrouded. These unanswered questions remind us that while Ray provides a window through the FOIA lens, much lies beyond view. As 3I Atlas recedes, the observation window narrows, potentially locking away resolutions. Whether the CIA's Glomar response reflects nothing more than standard classification protocol or hints at genuinely anomalous characteristics in 3I Atlas remains unresolved. We separate what Ray has documented, the rare denial and its precedents, from assumptions about deeper implications. Only the potential release of additional orbital residuals, higher resolution spectra, or eventual declassification will clarify if this interstellar visitor is simply an unusually well-tracked natural object or something that has quietly warranted a higher level of institutional caution. For now, the comet continues its outbound journey, leaving these uncertainties in its wake.